Uh, Thank you very much, uh, Adam. Adam, you play a very pivotal role in these discussions, and I want to appreciate your efforts. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back again to the Lego Tech Dialogues, and I'm your host, Galandi Tone Kire. Today, unlike the previous days, we have one you cannot avoid in our day-to-day practice of the law, one you cannot avoid in our day-to-day land transactions. So this conversation today is a conversation that is looking at a banker who is trying to verify a transaction, who is trying to verify a title deed. Today, the conversation is focusing on a student of mapping and surveys. Today, this conversation spreads and extends to a real estate agent who is purchasing or dealing in land. Ladies and gentlemen, as you may realize, in Uganda, the conversation about land is never just about soil and boundaries. It's about identity. It's about heritage. And that's why many a time people will tell you our land, our heritage. And for the vast majority of our people, it's about the single most valuable financial asset they will ever own. You and me appreciate and understand that in this country, when you touch somebody's land, you have touched somebody's everything, which is characteristic of our middle-income economies world over. But here's the challenge we face as legal practitioners, we face as bankers, and as citizens. Our land economy moves at the speed of the 21st century. But too often, our land administration has been stuck in the 20th century. Why do I say this? You have all seen that you go into a land office and they tell you the file has disappeared. The survey plan can't be found. The boundary dispute takes a decade to resolve. And the mortgage takes months to approve because the bank cannot verify the ground beneath their feet with enough certainty. Ladies and gentlemen, this gap between what we know about land and what we can do with land is what we are to explore today. We often talk about the title as the holy grail of ownership. But the title without a reliable, verifiable, and secure map is just a piece of paper. The future of secure land transactions lies in something far more dynamic: the digital cadaster. I'm glad that I have the acting commissioner, mapping and surveys. And I am very confident that some of these terminologies, by the time we leave this conversation, will be part of our language. Words like the digital cadaster. Ladies and gentlemen, imagine a system where the map and the register are one. A system where a lawyer in Gulu, a lawyer in Kabiramaido, or a banker in Kampala, and a surveyor in Mbarara can all look at the same digital data at the same time and see the exact boundaries. The registered owner and any caveats or mortgages all in real time. Imagine a system where fraud through double location becomes mathematically impossible because land itself has a unique, unforgeable digital identity. That is the promise of the digital cadaster. The question is, but how are we close to realizing it? What are the technical, legal, and financial hurdles standing in our way? And most importantly, for the citizen looking to sell their land or the investor looking to build what does this mean for the security and speed of your transaction? To answer these questions, ladies and gentlemen, I am truly honored to welcome a guest who is at the center of this transformation. He is the man tasked with drawing the digital map that our entire economy, land economy, relies on. Please join me in welcoming the Acting Commissioner, Mapping and Surveys. I also want to take the honor to give you a small brief about the Acting Commissioner, Mr. Magemeso. Mr. Magemeso is a gentleman I've known for some time, and he has been at the center of a lot of transformations. The small brief I'm about Mr. Magemeso Ibrahim. Magemeso Ibrahim is the Acting Commissioner for Surveys and Mapping, Uganda, with over 17 years of professional experience in cadastre surveying, land administration, engineering surveys, resettlement action plans, land acquisition and appropriation, project management, among others. He holds a Master's of Science in Geoinformation Science and Technology from Makerere University and a Bachelor of Science in Surveying and Land Information Systems from Chambogo University. Mr. Magemeso provides strategic and technical leadership in the modernization of Uganda's surveying and mapping sector. His work places strong emphasis on geospatial policy and legal reform, institutional strengthening, the development of national geodetic infrastructure, and digital cadaster. Ibrahim actively engages with regional and international partners, promoting standards, harmonization, interoperability, and regional cooperation. In addition, Ibrahim has a growing strategic focus on data governance and cybersecurity frameworks for the administration of land, with particular attention to enhancing land registry performance, data integrity, and system resilience. He has contributed to initiatives aimed at strengthening the data security posture, access controls, auditability, interoperability of national land administration platforms. His work further emphasizes secure digital transformation, risk management, and trusted geospatial and land data infrastructures to support transparent, efficient, and resilient land governance. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the right man for the right call. 17 years is not small feat. And therefore, I would want to take this opportunity to welcome the one and only Ibrahim Magemeso, our guest for today. You are welcome, Ibrahim. Thank you.
Thank you, Senior Counsel, the host today. It's a privilege to be hosted on this channel, and it's a privilege to be able to speak to, I'll call them the legal brains, and the other members interested in our land sector or the evolution of surveying and mapping in the country. It is surely an honor. For me, I'm just expectant to discuss this topic, especially when it comes to issues of the digital cadaster. I will use very few words at the start. Probably along the way, we'll be able to interact further. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You know, I will start with the basics. When the president, Uganda Law Society, Senior Counsel Isaac Semakade Kimeze saw your picture, his first question is, the last time I was at that office, and for the time I've practiced, I've not seen a young face. It has always been known an office for old men. Tell us the magic for starters. How does Magemeso, a man in his early 40s, so to say, ascends to the big office in the land? Thank you.
Surely, I think maybe I'm not early 40s. I may be looking young because I do a lot of field work. But yeah, I think 17 years is not a short fit. It is time enough to do work that can make you ascend the office. And I also want to say that as fate comes, you never know. One day or the other, you find yourself in an office and you have to stand up to the call and be able to address the issues and challenges that are going on around and be able to deliver a service for the nation. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Ladies and gentlemen, now we get to our topic of the day, the Digital Cadaster, bridging the gap between survey data and secure land transactions in Uganda's digital economy. We are privileged to be joined by the President of Uganda Law Society, Mr. Isaac Semakade. You are welcome. And start right away. We will have this segmented in 3 segments for purposes of our audience. One, we are going to look at defining the digital cadastre and its importance. And therefore, the first phase of questions will move around that. And then we are also going to have another sector where we're going to look at financial sector, that's banking and mortgages, for the benefit of our colleagues in the banking sector, so that we see the glue that binds the banker and the surveyor, and maybe the lawyer. And then we also going to look at another sector, which is legal and the conveyancing process, as where we're going to be looking at the workflow. Many our times clients give us work and they are saying we want a subdivision, and they have no idea of what goes on. So he expects that the thing is by a Caesar. So when he gives you a title, he says, you cut for me my part. He expects that in 2 days you should be able to have his part. So this conversation does not only help the lawyers, it will also help the client out there be able to appreciate how these systems actually run. And then the last segment, we are going to be looking at system integration and security. You and me realize that one of the challenges today with many of the citizens, including myself and you, is the conflict between the survey map and what's on the ground. So we will want to look at what is being done in that area. And the other part, which my president loves very much, is inclusion, access, and the future. Okay? Yeah, and thereafter we'll have the Q&A, and we'll be able to prepare for ED, and I'm looking forward for the invitation. Since I've extended one for the podcast, I'll be glad to be invited one for Pirao.
You are very invited for that one. I think that's the easiest. Thank you, Swale.
Yeah, thank you very, very so much. I will start right away. Commissioner, we hear the term digital cadastre. Now, this is not a language we see every day. Now, digital cadastre is thrown around a lot. Sometimes when the surveyors, you send them to do work, they use this technical language. For our audience of lawyers, bankers, property developers, could you break it down simply? How is a digital cadastre different from digital copies of all the paper maps? And then what is a digital cadastre? What is a cadastre? So you wrap that and so that we get rolling. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Basically, what I can say, I will define a cadastre first, then define it digitally, then be able to explain further to help people say the muntu wa wansi, who may not understand what a cadastre is. But a cadastre is basically an official record of land parcels or plots of land, showing their boundaries, their area and location and ownership. Basically, that is a cadastre. Now, when it comes to digital, it is the computerized record, official record of land ownership, size, location, and sometimes even land value. So that is basically a cadastre. So in this instance is that each piece of land is given a unique identifier, since it's also known to be located in a particular position. It is measured and has a particular size, and in that it provides for a proof of record of who owns that particular parcel and which rights are on that particular parcel. Basically, that is how simple it is. So no one should be confused when they hear the word cadaster. Basically, that is it. And today, we also have what is known as cadastral maps. Now, those are maps which actually initially used to show what I've described. Currently, they only show the plot number, the area, and then the boundary lines. That is for only surveyed land. So if the land is not surveyed or registered, it means it's not on the national cadaster.
Wow.
Yes.
So when we talk of a digital cadaster, because you have given us to understand what a cadaster is.
Yes.
What do you mean when you say digital cadaster?
Digital is basically, it means now everything is computerized. You have gone paperless. Now that is the future where we want to go. And that is what, when you hear about the blockchain and AI and so forth, that's where we want to go. But to reach there, to be able to have a complete paperless system where you can transact on your phone, email, or even in your room at home, it means we have to first understand that history of how we have evolved right from the 1900, because the land registration in this country is dated back up to 1900. That is 1900 agreement, which led to the allotment of land. After allotment, there was the survey, then the demarcation and survey, registration, and then titles were given out. So along the way, we operated that manual system where we had I would call them ammonia paper, where we would print our parcels and then expose that paper to sunshine and then be able to give you a blueprint. And most people know a blueprint, which is because it's what was in the old title. Then along the way, we started the reform as early as 1993. A lot of studies were done. We realized we needed to move and go into computerization, which means we needed that paper now, cadaster, to become digital. Now, in that process, we evolved and have now the land information system, where we scanned all that information. Now, beyond scanning that information, because now that information is helping us to trace what was, we created now a digital cadaster, which has the unique identifier, the name of the person who owns that parcel, the boundary of that parcel, and then the area of that parcel. Now we have reached a point where we are introducing in the land evaluation management information system, where we also want to attach a value to that parcel. So now once blockchain comes in, then it becomes more proof and secure. That's what is the digital cadaster we are talking about.
Wow, 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 wow. That is really very rich. And for the listener out there, you realize there's so many changes coming our way. Previously, you know, in our practice, you would sit down with a valuer and you say mkama wange tukoze tutia. So when you say now we are looking at having a digital valuation system, you're kicking us out of business. But that's for the road. I am very, very excited with the developments that end. And I would want to take you to our next question. You have discussed our movement to the digital system. And for any ordinary Ugandan businessman or homeowner, could you link the purpose or the importance of having this modern cadaster? How is it going to benefit me? How is it going to help me in terms of value? What is it going to solve? Which the old system was not solving. Thank you.
Actually, thank you for that question. This digital cadaster brings with it security of tenure. It brings with it minimal land disputes. It causes, because first and foremost, the methods of survey used then are not the same methods of survey we are using today. Then at some point there used to be plain tables. People would go with pencils and scale rulers, and then they would survey in the field and produce a particular sheet, which we don't introduce in some areas. Now today we are using GNSS, which is Global Navigation Satellite Systems, to measure. It means we are picking precise the points up to millimeter accuracy. Now with the digital cadaster, it will make sure that your boundaries are measured to a pinpoint of millimeter accuracy. It means there's no reason why you would have encroachments coming in here and there. And because of that, you are certain. First of all, it increases the land value if you want to mortgage or even sell. Why? Because someone is certain of what they are acquiring or buying, or even what you're mortgaging to the bank. They will be certain that this land is located in a particular area, it has no dispute to it, the boundaries are clear, the coordinates are known automatically. So you are secure. And then it would make it hard for someone else to attempt to register. Because those days when we were on the manual system, we had these sheets flying all over. And the poor record system then in the manual system would lead to creation of very many sheets and insets. Now with the digital cadaster, you can zoom to a scale of 1 to 1. Now then on the sheets we would draw and have to have a scale. That's why you even see in your titles, yes, when we give you a title today, we print a deed plan and we put it at a scale. But at the system, someone can zoom to up to a scale of 1 to 1 and be able to see what is there, even see the markstone. Wow. So the digital cadaster is just the way to go. It provides full proof of tenure.
Wow, that is very, very powerful. Ibrahim, to the listeners out there, our guest today is Mr. Ibrahim Magemeso, the Acting Commissioner, Mapping and Survey. And the topic for today is bridging the gap between survey data and secure land transactions in Uganda's digital economy. In that very segment, I would want us to look at the distinction between a title and a survey map. Many a time, when you give a surveyor to go and do work, I'm now speaking as a layman, he says, Kasta print ye fulume chapa mbanko zechi, mbanchi mazi in the layman's language. Would want to understand the difference between a title, which we call a title, and then the survey map, and where do they meet?
Okay. I think to be able to bring to understanding the difference between the two is that the survey map is actually the land. The title is the registration of who owns the land. That's why when you read on that certificate of title, it talks about land edged in red on the plan annexed. So basically the plan, the deed plan, or the map, or which is the result of the cadaster, is what shows the limits within which the one whose land has been registered stops, begins, and ends. So that's the difference. And by the time you achieve a deed plan, it means you have undergone several processes, which includes even adjudication. Because depends. Probably it could be first-time registration. In this instance, we need to separate the two. There's what we call first-time registration, and then there is second-time registration. The second-time registration is where you are mutating or subdividing property. You get someone who already has an existing title, he signs for you a mutation, you take a surveyor, he measures the boundaries, now processes through, the processes goes through the fiscal planning process, and then once that is approved, it goes through the quality assurance at the Ministry zone offices, then a deed plan is issued. That is second-time registration. Then the first-time registration is where this is customary land, it has never been registered before. It means you have to fill application forms. Now, it depends on what you want to register, whether it's a lease or a freehold or customary, but you have to apply. Now, when you apply, it means the LOC one has to attest or witness to the application. It means your neighbors have to attest. Now, that is the process of adjudication. It means the area land committee, which is at sub-county, has to attest first, and then a physical planning committee at the district also has to sign and grant that maybe the land you're applying for is not in a gazetted area, is not in a road reserve, it's not someone else's land, or it has been, and then they provide minutes which prove that the land is either for residential, commercial, it is for cultural purposes, and so forth. Now, once that is done, the district land board grants a minute to survey. Now, the surveyor goes and surveys, provides the results, which go through the quality assurance checks until a deed plan is issued. Now, once a deed plan is issued, then you go and register that plan and you get a certificate of title. That's when the land registration comes in. All the other parts are being done by about 4 other players. You have the physical planning, you have the land administration, and then you have the surveys and mapping.
Wow.
Wow. So that's for first time registration. Thank you.
Just right there, you bring in a very, 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 very itching conversation. Because many a time we have the land registration department say the problem are the surveyors. And the surveyor is saying the problem is land registration. And would want to demystify this myth today. In your conversation, you give us a narrative of exactly what happens if somebody is having first-time registration. He goes to the area land committee. The area land committee says this land belongs to Galandi Tonechire, and he writes a report. It recommends to the physical planning committee. It comes also surveys and says, okay, maps and says, well, when we look at our area here called the Kanambatiko, it is within our development plans. And then you are having an instruction to survey, which is probably coming from like you've described, and the surveyor is going down to do the survey. And then it has gone to the district land board, the minute has been issued, and so on, and finally, we are going to registration. And then, 2 weeks later, Galandi Tony is in hold of his freehold duplicate certificate of title. But then, Naula Roda is also saying, by the way, I'm also having a Mairo certificate of title. From where you sit, where is the problem? That you find I am having a freehold certificate of title, which you have described in the process of getting it, and then you're also having a one Mercy, she's also having her Mairo certificate of title. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I would think that now is a thing of the past. It used to happen when we were in the manual system, where we had different cadastral sheets because the country was divided into different, I would call them index or blocks. So sometimes the sheet would disappear, and when they were trying to trace and see if this land is Milo or public land available for allocation, they wouldn't easily tell and so forth. But today, with even the land information, which we have, land information system, where we have everything in one basket, it is easier to tell where one's title is. That's why actually you are hearing the rampant stories of duplication, overlaps. Most of them are coming because they have been exposed by this system. That's why we are able to tell that this land is overlapped or not. Now, even look at probably sometimes it's even the dishonest of the area land committee. Because if it is Milo, that should have been detected at area land committee level. Because the law says the area land committee should even publish a public notice. That's Form 10. And it should be for 14 days, the minimum. At local areas, where people come to say, Tony Kire Galandi has applied for what? A conversion or registration of what? Freehold. Now, at that point, someone should be able to report and say, no, 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 the land you're applying for is Milo. But it used not to happen because sometimes, that's why I say the dishonesty of some people within the community, they go ahead and do that. But now today, when you bring such reports, survey reports, we are able to detect. Because once we put in the coordinate, we know whether it is falling in a Milo block or in public land where another title is or not. So it is surely a thing of the past.
Thank you very much to the listener out there. If you're worried that there is a possibility now of somebody creating a freehold title on your title, that's now a thing of the past. Thank you very, very much. That takes us to our next segment of questions, and I will merge them for ease of your conversation. And we are going to be looking at the financial sector, banking, and mortgages in this particular sector. You and me realize one of the biggest complaints from commercial banks is the risk of funding property only to discover a boundary dispute later. The question is, how does Digital Cadaster reduce non-performing risk for banks and encourage them to lend more and freely? I will tell you, as an advisor for a bank, one of the challenges banks are facing today, and which goes down to affect the client, is issue of boundaries. So you have a bank that wants to release money to this younger investor, but then it has reservations because of a boundary dispute. So the question is, how is the Digital Cadaster going to help, or how has it helped resolve this? Number two, in high value commercial transaction, time is money. Currently, verifying a survey and getting a mortgage approval in most of these banks can even take months. They promise you it is going to take a week, and trust me, by the time you are done, it is 2 months. And many of the problems come as a result of the lack of a link between mapping and survey office and commissioner land registration office in one way or another. So are we looking at a future where Priscilla is going to sit as a banker and verify this online, that I can be able to verify my survey online? We have also seen cases where you have produced survey maps and they have that code, and the lawyers will attest that when they scan it, it shows you no results found. And then you have to explain, because the client has seen a barcode, and then the lawyer has to explain that, these things have issues. Would we want you to throw light around that? And lastly, along those lines, property valuation is often subjective. From your angle, do you see a Digital Cadaster which is giving me a map, helping resolve the problem of me saying, no, my neighbor's land was just sold recently at 200 million shillings. You can't put my land at a value of 800 million. And these are the battles URA is having with us, citizens. And these are the battles lawyers are having with clients, because you're asking a client to pay taxes, and he's saying, boss, this land is not worth the 50 million. Why are you telling me to pay tax of this volume? So I would want you to look at that as a cluster of questions so that you have a flow for the benefit of our listeners. Over to you. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I think definitely I'll start probably with the last. Is that the Digital Cadaster, like I said, it contains even values of property. And as I talk now, probably to the listeners who may not be aware, we have a new law which is regulating the valuation practice, which was assented to recently. That's the Valuation Act. And in that law, it provides for that existence of the love the land valuation management system. And currently, the Office of the Chief Government Value is already doing what is known as a market research study to pick different values throughout the whole country to be able to put them in that system to ensure that the next time you're doing an assessment, it will not be dependent on sale agreements. It will be dependent on what is the market value as per the Chief Government Valuers Office. So basically, it will not be subjective. At least, even if it is subjective, the margin of error provided for should not be so big. So definitely, Digital Cadaster will be able to solve the issue of the valuation and the taxation and so forth. When we go back to the issue of the mortgages, the searches and valuation and the verification carried out by banks, surely just carrying out a search on the land registry of late, or we have been advising banks that it's not enough to just carry out a search on the system. It is also paramount for you to do a physical search or a survey spatial search where you also go to the ground, and at least there should be a verification survey carried out to ascertain if there exists another property or if there exists any dispute in the boundaries, because the boundaries are out there in the field, they are not in office. We may have a map here, but the issue of the disputes are in the villages or in the towns where people are disagreeing on where a boundary line should be and where it shouldn't. So, but until you carry out that boundary verification, then you'll be able to do it. There is serious, I don't want to say there is no linkage between the Commissioner Service and Mapping and Commissioner Land Legislation. They are now into one room. I mean, we have the Minister's own office where they sit in one building. We have representatives at all Minister's own offices. So it is easier to even walk in, even at head office. It is easier for me to walk into Commissioner Land Registration's office, and then we concur on a matter and resolve an issue as fast as possible. So it cannot take any long. And surely, like I talked about the digital cadastre where we are going, we expect for people to do online transactions. We want the survey after field work, when you are surveyed, to automatically submit that work through a portal to the system. It is plotted and checked. If it passes the test, it goes on for registration, and out it goes a certificate of title. And that's why we're thinking that the digital cadastre, which will come out as a result of the blockchain technology and AI, will be able to help and solve some of the issues where you don't need to come to office. You will do it whether you are in Yumbe, whether you are in Moroto, whether you are in Kavale, or even in the USA. You should be able to carry out a search online and be able to get results. And those results must be referring to one unit of a parcel. Now, that brings us to what we are also doing as a ministry. We are already doing what is known as data cleaning, where we are cleaning different cadastral data information to eliminate the duplication, to eliminate the spatial disorientations, or where surveys had been surveyed and they fell in a different place, because all those used to happen because we didn't have the geodetic infrastructure in place. But now we have it, and with that geodetic infrastructure, you cannot survey property and it falls elsewhere. It has to be in the right place, and it is in the right place.
Wow.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Magemeso. For those of us who have just joined us, we are joined with Mr. Magemeso Ibrahim, the Acting Commissioner, Mapping and Survey. And we are looking at the topic, bridging the gap, digital data and mapping and surveys. And from where you sit, I'm sure many times you have appeared in court and trying to defend, differentiate whether Tony's land sits here or sits elsewhere. And most of these problems arise because the banker that gave away the loan relied on a report that was provided by the lawyer who is on retainer to advise the bank on the perfection of the mortgage. But then there is also person A who is saying, by the way, the property they showed you does not sit here. It sits 500 meters from here, or 200 meters from here. I want us to look at a practical perspective from your experience of 17 years. If you were given a young lawyer today to advise, who is helping a bank perfect a title by way of due diligence, could you just take us through, if you were advising a young lawyer or a lawyer who is doing a due diligence, what are those common pitfalls, what are those common mistakes we make that make us go wrong and advise clients either wrongly or advise banks wrongly, from a practical perspective and experience? Thank you.
Oh, thank you. From a practical perspective, if any person came to me, not just a lawyer, and you are doing due diligence on property, I'll tell you, one, you can do the registry search. Secondly, you have to do the spatial search. In other words, we have to go to the physical ground. We have to locate it. If the person is trying to mortgage it to the bank, I'll say, let us do a site verification. Let us visit it. Would pick the coordinates and would expect the services of a professional surveyor, who should be a registered surveyor, to go and verify whether this particular place of land that this person has taken us to is registered, that is in the first place. Because in Uganda today, about 30% of land is registered, 70% is unregistered. And secondly, it would help us to know if that land is registered, if there is no other interest. And because also in Uganda today, I think about 20% of the land sometimes has dual interests, or two kinds of interests. You have the Chibanja interest, and then you have the landlord interest, which is the landlord-tenant relationship interests. So you would also need to ascertain if this particular title the person wants to give to you is not encumbered by such an interest of someone else claiming. Then once that is done, it would also be prudent to check in the system to find out if there are no other certificates of title. Why am I saying that? If there are no other certificates of title, looking at the different dispensations of the law we have had, we had the pre-colonial, the colonial, post-independence. We even had a time of 1975 where all land belonged to the state, and they would issue out leases on all property, whether you had a mile or not. It was in the state, so it would. Then we have the after post-1995 constitution, where all land reverted back to the people. Now, in that instance, you may find that the title depends on when it was issued. If it was issued before 1995, the question would be, is there another interest that at that time was overlooked by the fact that there was a land reform decree, which made the land all to belong to the state, that the land could deal, the state could deal in it. So that would help in such. And that's why I'm certain that some of you could have been aware that at one point we had to do a serious cleaning in the Mukono area, where we agreed with, even people brought back their certificates of title, which we cancelled voluntarily because they were sitting on existing mile titles, and yet they had created freeholds on top of them. And those freeholds were a result of, most of them, conversions from leases which had been issued after 1975. But along the way, when we realized that, and they were mortgaging them in banks and transacting. So there was a lot, and the good thing is we did it with the cooperation of the bank, with the cooperation of those people who are mortgaging, with the cooperation of the landlords, and we are cleaning to eliminate the dual or those particular certificates of title. So if you're doing the due diligence, you need to do that physical, to pick at least coordinates, and then be able to do an analysis, overlays, to make sure there's no other existing interest on that same land. Thank you.
Wow. And I think that also just takes me, before you map up, we wind up that particular part. Whereas this digital cadaster is a pretty development, is a leap in the new century, and with the recent dynamics. Looking at our land tenure system, where there is an intermix of customary land, registered land. And that creates different interests. You'll find Agre has his Chibanja, as locally it is called. That stretches from point A to point D. But then you have Tony, who has his registered interest, surveyed interest, that moves from point D to point C. From where you sit, how do you think the digital cadaster is going to help reduce this neighbor dispute? Because clearly, whereas we are having the digital cadaster, we are having, like you have ably submitted, only 30% of the land in the country or thereabout that has been surveyed. And the intermix causes confusion. Because when Agro is selling to me his title, when I bring you on the ground, you know, as a surveyor, you are picking points. You are telling me your land passes here. And I am not going to mobilize the whole village. Sometimes the Chibanja holder is a fisherman. He has actually gone for fishing the time I'm actually picking that lakeside property. But he has his agreement of Chibanja. So tomorrow I go to start putting up a house by the lakeside, and they are saying, boss, kino ekibanja kya mwami Baruku. So I would want you to take us through, one, what steps is your department taking to resolve that impasse? And two, what is the current resolution factor you're using to resolve such kind of conflicts within your domain? And what advice do you give to surveyors, to the lawyers, and the people who are transacting in land in that area? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. With regards to that dual interests in land, you use the agri, who has a chibanja from A to D, and then someone else has from D to C. It means if the person has registered interest from D to C, it means there's another who has registered interest from C to A, or C to B and then B to A. It would mean, because it's possible to have chibanja interest across boundaries of registered land. Now, what we are doing as government is we have begun the process of registering the chibanjas to create a register for chibanja. Initially, those registers are being done at sub-county level, where they issue what is known as certificates of occupancy. We have started that kind of activity in areas of Singo, Mitiana. We have some areas in Mpiji. And what we're doing is we're identifying the landlord and then measuring all chibanja interests. Because the law has already provided for how they should relate. It even says how someone should acquire. Because if someone is selling to you a titled land and they are chibanja owners, the law envisages that you should also consult the chibanja people. Because the landlord should have actually, in first instance, informed the chibanja people that I'm going to sell my interest. Are you willing to buy yourself? Are you willing to pay and you take absolute rights to the land? Or if not, then I'm selling to so and so who will be able to become your new landlord. That's what the law envisages. And basically, that's what we would expect to happen. So, in other words, if you are going to do that, don't make a mistake of not consulting the LC1 in your land transactions. And yes, it is okay to transact from Kampala, but it's very important to go to the village and find out if this land already has other chibanja interests. And if they're there, I'm sure the LC1s and the neighbors will be able to tell you there is something, there is someone here. Then you'll be able to say, I can settle you out. Because it's also possible. You can also pay out to the kibanja and it goes out. Then the other thing, I think that one also comes to an issue of an agreement between you and the chibanja. So far, there is no black and white rule that this is the much you pay. You ask that question of how are you resolving it. So it's an issue of understanding. But what we have is how much the chibanja is supposed to pay Those fees have been regulated upon, and they have been gazetted, so it is possible to pay for them to be paying to you as tenants. But if you want them to go away now, that means you have to be able to purchase out their rights. Basically, that is it.
Thank you very much. And to the listeners, the take homes, if you are going to buy your registered interest, take the initiative to get down the ground and talk to the area leader to be able to know if there are other existing interest on your property. The take home also is that for those of you holding big chunks of land, like my friend Baluk, who has a square mile in Rwenzori, it is important that you get to know that they have gazetted fees for the Bibanja owners. So next time you find 1,000 people on your square mile, there is already a gazetted amount which they are supposed to pay to you. And if you intend to dispose of the property to the mighty Sam Ndijo, then you must inform the Bibanja owners, because they get the first priority of purchase. Yeah. My banker friend Priscilla will tell you that there is a new terminology called a purchaser in waiting. So we can term them purchasers in waiting. In waiting, yeah. So thank you really very, very much. And I want us to know to go to our next segment of our conversation. And that is about your technology, yeah. Previously, for us, we grew up seeing people with those meters and poles and so on. Could you give us an overview on how the current modern technologies have changed land surveying, and how these changes A, benefit the ordinary person, B, benefit the banks, C, simplify the work of the lawyers, but also, most importantly, how they are able in one way or another to help illegal activities. When I say illegal activities, many times you'll find a person is having a title in a wetland, and then this person X sells this property to person Y. Person Y puts up a house, NEMA comes the next day and is demolishing the house. And we ask ourselves questions, and we are like, okay, this title has a survey map. And by it having survey map, then we expect that our friend Ibrahim Magemeso is in the know, that this survey passed through the right channels. We expect that our friend Becca Mugaino should have known better. But why should you wait for me to put my petrol station of 800, 2 billion shillings, and you are saying you are in a wetland? Is it a problem of previous old surveys? Is it a problem of weakness in your systems? Or is it a problem that, to harmonize it, is it a question of different systems? We are confused. Take us through.
Okay, thank you. I think you have decided to always bring the easiest questions at last. Well, the last question is the easiest one. Why? One, surveyors are trained to measure, because surveying is basically an art and science of taking measurements. We are trained to measure whether in air, in water, in forests, everywhere we take measurements. And the other thing you have talked about is the issue of NEMA coming in. NEMA is a regulator of use. It has come to a point where it understands that, yes, wetlands, as per the law, they're supposed to be held in trust for the people. So, and anyone who is going to utilize a wetland must seek for permission to utilize it. Even when you look at the Physical Planning Act, it's the same. So basically, you can own a title which has a wetland in it, but when you want to utilize it now, in terms of developing a house, putting a petrol station, or even having an industry there, then you need what is known as an environmental impact social assessment report. You need an ASIA certificate from NEMA. They should be able to tell you how to utilize that land. So it is even okay, that one. That's why for us, sometimes when it comes to wetlands, apart from the gazetted ones, for the ones which are not gazetted, we issue a title. Then if NEMA comes, they will tell you how to deal with the land. You can probably don't build such kind of structures. But when it comes to the gazetted areas like forests and wetlands, a thing of the past. We used to issue titles there by mistake, and now we are in the process of cleaning. Slowly by slowly, we go into issues of cancellations to say this one was issued in error, you were deceived, or someone presented himself falsely and claimed to be a customary owner in the forest, and then we cancel the certificates of title. So basically, that is about the wetlands and so forth. But about the technology, surely the technology has evolved a lot. You know, in 1900, when the first surveyor came to Uganda, it was in 1901, chief surveyor, and then they established the Department of Surveys and Mapping, then later the Department of Lands and Survey. Well, that's why actually the department is PO Box 1, because they knew the importance of surveying and mapping in this country. When they came, is that they were using a compass or a gyroscope and the scale ruler and the pencil and other kinds of things, and then stereoscopes. And they would move long distance. They would need tapes, steel bands. Actually, initially there were chains which became steel bands, and then tapes. Today you have measuring tapes which are plastic and synthetic. We don't use those ones because they are affected by temperature a lot. But along the way we evolved from that, and because of those tapes, you imagine if you have just eaten food and you are strong enough and you start a measurement after breakfast, by the time it is coming to midday, the energy has dwindled and you are pulling, you end up introducing in sag. That's why you see sometimes even the survey regulations of 1961 put into consideration that when you are taking those measurements, there was an error allowed, plus or minus 3 meters. Today, it can't work because people are fighting over a foot, which is about 1 meter. Yeah. So that's how technology has also evolved. Now, along the way, we came with theodolites, then total stations, which included an electronic distance measurement, whereby a line would be measured horizontally. You wouldn't have to correct. That reduced the errors being made in terms of measurement, which are personal. They became systemic. Then in the 1970s, the superpowers started navigating the space with satellites. In 1993, 94 satellites were now opened for civilian use, surveying. And from that time, we have started using GPS. Others call it GPS, but it's basically GNSS because GPS is American. And then there are others for like Russia, Chinese, European, and so forth. So they be able to give us position to a millimeter accuracy. Now, that technology has enabled us to take, first and foremost, shorter time in the field. Those days, imagine you're going to measure maybe even a square mile. You would need, people would go and camp. That's why there used to be what is referred to as survey camps. People would camp in some district for a longer period of time. That's why those days, there's as just a side story, is that many surveyors would go everywhere and they would have children everywhere because they have spent their 6 months surveying and navigating. Because how you are measuring a distance by tape, you are cutting lines. Today you don't have to. What you used to do in a week, you can do it in a day, because now you have GNSS equipment which is quickening the work. What does that come to? Low cost of spatial data acquisition. It means the cost of survey is going down. So it benefits the client or the owner of the land, it benefits the banker who wants to verify the land, it benefits everyone. If you want to register your land, the cost of that acquisition becomes minimal. Because if you are going to sustain a survey, I remember when we had just started survey, when we'd go to those places in the rural areas, some people would give us cows and goats. But today, since you are going to spend only one day, who will give you a cow and a goat? No, you just go there within a day. If they are generous enough, they'll give you lunch, and then you're back. So basically, that's the technology that we have now. Definitely, as technology evolves, even the methods of data acquisition evolve, because now there is new technology which is known as the drones, which are being used to survey large spans or areas in the area and produce maps for that area. People are going ahead to use such kind of technology to acquire big chunks of titles of land in a short period of time. And because even the GNSS equipment, you are not cutting lines, it is easier for you to go and survey land and move away in a shorter period of time before people get to know. Now, that is the disadvantage of that, because otherwise, if you could be taken by Sema Gemeso to go and survey his land in Mayuge, and while you reach there, because the neighbor is not around, he says, you can't even add that one. Now, because of the dishonesty in the communities, so you move around quickly, and at the end of the day, a title has come out. And someone begins to say, but this was part of my land, then we go into the litigation. That's why we think that the checks and balances which were put in place must be strengthened. The area land committees, the LOC ones, the physical planning committees, everyone must be able to be either held responsible for their decisions to ensure that no one, or the cost of taking or registering someone's land must be too expensive if we are caught offside. Those are some of the few things we are putting in the laws that we are trying to amend. Maybe some of you may not be aware that the survey sector is regulated by two laws mainly. You have the Survey Act, which is as very old. I'm very sure some of you are not there when it was enacted, 1939. And then the Surveyors Registration Act of 1974. I mean, you have these acts which are old and out of touch with the current technology. We are now regulating the current technology using technical instructions issued by Commissioner Survey and Mapping. And that may not have force of law to reprimand someone who is misusing the technology. So basically, that's why I really think that we need to support the issue of the digital cadastre, support and embrace the amendments of these laws that are coming up to ensure that we have serious force of law to utilize and take advantage of these technologies that have come up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my brother Magemeso. I think for me, our take homes in this segment is number one, the commissioner says you are in trouble. If you have a title in the wetland, some titles he acknowledges were made in error and they're in the cleaning process. And therefore, my question is, who is going to be responsible for the commissioner office's errors that were created before he came into office? Because for me, if the title went through your office, the survey came out, and then the title came out. Now, 20 years down the road, you are saying, but by the way, that title which was created, just a gazetted area, it was created in error. And I don't work in Ministry of Lands, neither do I work in mapping and surveys. That is for you, for the road. The other challenge, which is your clerical call, which I think, for me, this goes to the lawyers, more especially Uganda Law Society. There's a clerical call. There is, as we are amending the Registration of Titles Act and some of these acts that are in process, I think, Mr. Vice President Asimwe, it is important that some of our submissions should also be able to really enforce the law to the effect that a person who willingly, commits this wrong act of a portion or adding property that does not belong to him should be able to answer in persona. Because you realize, Mr. Magemeso, in our day-to-day practice, when a mistake is made, I'm glad for you, you have admitted that some of the things are done in error. But when a mistake is made, it makes it so hard for a lawyer to actually find who to hold culpable. So we end up with the Commission on Land Registration in one way or another. And then the Commission on Land Registration says, wait a minute. For me, by the time I am producing a title, I am at the tail end. Because the Area Land Committee has produced a report. A Physical Planning Committee has produced a report. A surveyor who got an instruction to survey from the district staff surveyor, who is a qualified officer, brought a report, which report can only be accepted if it has been stamped by a registered surveyor. So for me, by the time they are telling me register a title deed, I mean, I'm at the tail end. So even when you try to do the back tracing, we have first challenges in court, and everybody is pointing to the other. Yeah, he says, oh, you know, for me, I based on the report by the Area Land Committee. And the Area Land Committee says, no, for us, we are non-technical. I mean, as you look at us, we are villagers. We don't know these technical things. And then the Physical Planning Committee says, yes, for us, we only looked at the land. It is within the development plans, and they told us the man owns the land. And then the District Land Board says, we know we depended on the technical people, the Physical Planning Committee. You know, and the District Land Board says, maybe you sue the commission. The commissioner says, no, you sue the District Land Board. And it's a whole fracas. So I think the clerical call you make, for me, is very, very key. If we are going to solve problems in the land sector, number one, it is key that we make every person at every stage be held personally liable. Because this call of saying we sue the Commission on Land Registration, and the Commission on Land Registration loses the matter, and then what next? It says, okay, you will be compensated by the Attorney General. And then they will tell you, you wait for 10 years for you to appear in the budget. It is nonsense. It's not right, because it is curtailing development, it is curtailing investments. And I can tell you that one of the challenges we face as advisors to investors is the problems, these mistakes that move along the way. And I'm glad that you point out that the Digital Cadaster comes in to resolve some of these problems. I'm glad you point out that the Digital Cadaster will be able to point and show that, no, this is a wetland, this is a gazetted wetland, this is a non-gazetted wetland. And maybe for me, the other take home for the people who are listening out there is that it's not illegal to own a title on a wetland. The question is, are you having approved user rights for the wetland? Because many people have always believed that you can't have a title in a wetland. I'm glad you clear that today, and it makes a lot of sense. And for those of you who have joining in, we are having Commissioner Magemeso Ibrahim, 17 years of experience in mapping and survey. You're welcome. We move to our last segment of our questions, and this is with respect to the digital transformation, which is actually a clerical call from the Radical New Bar. We are looking at a situation today where you are talking about digitization. From where you sit, what is that single bottleneck you are facing in converting this massive archive of physical survey records into secure digital data? So that we also understand where you're coming from. Otherwise, thank you.
Wow, thank you. That one bottleneck, I've already actually talked about it. Yeah. We have a law which is as old, actually older than Uganda itself. Yeah. The Survey Act of 1939. We have the Surveyors Registration Act of 1974. And all these laws, But for example, the Survey Act envisaged that all surveys were supposed to be done by government surveyors.
Yeah.
Now, in 1993, we come up and we privatize surveying. So now surveying is being done by private surveyor who is regulated under the SRA, that's the Surveyor Regulation Act. And then we are trying to convert all this data and have it into one place. You want to regulate these private practitioners and have them do quality and good work. So basically, that's what I can say. And then number two is the fact that you are looking at less accurate data, because I talked about the lack of geodetic infrastructure which existed before, which led to the surveying being done on assumed control points, especially within the Uganda region where there was Milo. And that caused a lot of shifts in the surveys and so forth because of that. So you have all this data and you're trying to put it in a very accurate cadaster. Yeah. So the process is what we are doing, and basically that's what I would look at and say, how do we go beyond that? That is now what we are doing a lot of research on data conversion, doing a lot of research on data transformations to make sure that what was surveyed with a lesser accuracy can be improved now to become high accuracy, to make sure that the next certificate of title that we issue you, which is the electronic one, because we're also looking forward to having electronic signatures introduced, so that there's no physical interaction with us. You know, when people are comparing land registration, sometimes they refer to the registration for permits, obtaining a permit, driving permit, or transfer of a vehicle. And when you look at the vehicles, in my mind, I'm thinking all vehicles that enter the country are registered. In this country, not all land is registered. So we are trying to say, how do we register all land in this country to make sure that all land is known and for who it belongs is known, and then the next transactions of the transfers and the subdivisions will all have no challenges. So basically that is it.
Wow. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, as we come to the tail end of our conversation today, you are faced with very, very new ideas and new information. Magemeso comes with a gospel today that forget about the old system. The new system is going to allow you to be able to actually verify your survey seated in your bedroom, and with very high accuracy levels. The new system is going to throw the valuer out of business, because values are going to be on the system and they are going to be automated. So the negotiation backdoor may not work anymore. You know, and for me, these conversations should be eye-openers.
Yeah, but it's not throwing the valuer out. You know, when you say that the valuer is going out, maybe you're talking of other negotiations, but the valuers will still be on market.
You know, these conversations, for me, they are supposed to inform us in our sector and the practice. Because I can tell you, over 80% of our legal practice is on land matters. And what are we litigating? We are litigating boundaries. Ndine ekibanja kyange omusajja yasimbye gundi nze ndine ekyapa kikoma wano. We are having litigations with respect to fraud. We are saying Agure placed his freehold on my Mairo. Agure fraudulently transferred my title. And therefore the conversation of this blockchain technology you're talking about, of an forgeable title, an forgeable map, I think for me is an eye-opener to our practice, both for the surveyor, the lawyer, and the banker. The banker, his work is going to be eased, because it means the due diligence that the banker was paying me 100 million for a property worth $1 million US, he's going to say, wait a minute, by the way, we can be able to check for this thing on the system here without going out. So that's business gone. It also means that for the lawyers who are very good litigators on fraud in land, they will definitely have to litigate a different angle of fraud, because maybe we are going to be discussing digital signature fraud. Because clearly, with your discussion and the digital cadaster, it means some of these issues of double plotting and double titling are going not to be there anymore. And I think, why do we have these conversations? For us, Diamond Advocates, we have these conversations so that we can be able to, to flash ahead of where our practice is going as a country, and also our practice is going as our generation, the 21st generation. And we thank you very, very much for sparing time. We know you are really a very, very busy person. We are also cognizant of the fact that you are advising the East African community on the boundaries which were done manually, yeah, so that we stop fighting over Migingo Island. So we really thank you. I just want you to wind up with one very, very last question from my end. Then I will also check through my chats to check if we have some questions in the chats.
Okay, thank you.
One question here that has come through one Birungi. Birungi says, if you were given an opportunity to address judicial officers, magistrates and judges on how to handle land cases, what would you want them to understand about the new geospatial data that your department produces so that they make better informed rulings? That is from Birungi.
Wow. If I was given an opportunity to address the judges and magistrates on that geospatial data that I'm talking about, I think what is most important is for most people to understand that land ownership is possession. You must be in occupation of the land. That is what actually I believe our land legislation system is premised on, that you own what you are using and occupying. And then number two, it would be to also be cognizant of the fact that there has been evolution or there has been transformation. That what people used to consider like a margin of error in 1974 is no longer the same as the margin of error today. And the method of survey then is not the same method of survey today. Because sometimes, even the surveyors, by the way, they go to the field today and use, especially the ones who have just come out recently, go and use high precision equipment. They are not cognizant of the fact that at one point there were measurements done using tapes and plane table. So they measure and judge that title which was produced in 1939 using the lenses of 2026. They fail to see, then they tell you the distance was supposed to be 100 meters, but we have found 98. So the 2 meters should be somewhere here. Failing to understand how that particular parcel is relating with the neighbors. That's why I said land is what? Possession. That is key. If someone understood that what you're occupying and utilizing and the extents are determined physical on the ground, then would be go ahead and correct most of the surveys that were done with less accuracy to become precise today, so that in the future there will never be any land dispute in this country.
Wow, I hope, Birungi, you have got that. The take home is that you don't use the eye lens of today to produce a report and not taking cognizance of the time the first survey was done. Because the marginal error that time was bigger and the marginal error today is small. And I think that's a message to the judicial officers, that while we look at these reports, sometimes the land may be extending by 3 meters And that probably is because of the old survey, and then that contradiction, I think, is key for members to be able to appreciate and understand that. I also want to wind this up by asking you one question, because we have very many young practitioners who are interested in this conversation. If a young practitioner, a young lawyer was just left LDC, came to your office today and said, I heard your conversation about this digital cadaster and about the changes that are coming my way. What are those short courses would you recommend for me to make a good land lawyer for the future? Thank you.
Wow. Actually, I think if I was to recommend the courses, one, let me start with the long, not short course.
Yeah.
Because recently there is a new master's degree course which was introduced at Makerere University. It is the Master's in Land Management. That would be a very good course for anyone who wants to practice in land administration, which includes, that means land administration is surveying, evaluation, registration, fiscal planning, all those aspects are into that land management course, such that you would have snippets or short courses included, and then you will come out with a Master's of Science in that particular course. Now, if it is to be a short course, I would advise go and do a GIS course. GIS certificate. You can register for a short certificate at the Institute of Survey and Land Management in either land management course. It is there. There is also a certificate in survey and land management. There is also a certificate in those are short courses, 1 year. They're even 3 weeks or 3-month courses at the institute. You just need to visit their website, Institute of Land Management, of Survey and Land Management in Uganda, and you see out all the short courses that they have. You can go there, get refreshed, and be able to know most of these things, because you will have ideas on whatever happens in the land administration sector in those areas. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we can't go any further than this. We want to thank you, thank everybody who was tuned in today. And today we're hosting none other than Mr. Ibrahim Magemeso. And the topic for today was bridging the gap between survey data and sexual land transactions in Uganda's digital economy. And for those of you who are aiming at continuing in legal practice, focusing on land transactions and land advisory, the commissioner advises that please renew the knowledge, rewind, refill, because things have changed. You may want to know a bit of GIS, you may want to know a bit of geospatial data training, and if you want to do the expert bit of it, he recommends it would not be bad if you did a Master's of Science in Land Management for you to be able to advise clients with the knowledge of 2026, not the knowledge of 1939 when the Act came into place. We have one speaker, Wilson Muhindo. You are going to close. You'll be the last person here, please. You have requested to speak. Go ahead. You have 1 minute and we close this out.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you to the organizer of this program. My name is Muhindo Wilson. I'm a Minister of Lands for the Range Rural Kingdom. A vote of thanks to my brother Ibrahim. Ibrahim was my classmate and master. I just can't thank him enough. The Ministry of Lands is transitioning to a new phase. So we just have to be patient with the new changes, with the new transitions that are ongoing. But I will thank them, especially in data cleaning, because earlier on in the days, especially for Milo surveys, there was not a unified system. Surveyors used to work on assumed systems, assumed coded systems. Today, So we are trying to integrate all those things together so that what we have today matches with what was done then. So we can expect discrepancies in accuracy, especially for those who tend to, we tend to do boundary openings. The technology today might not heavily support the surveys that were then, but a vote of thanks to the ministry, a vote of thanks to my brother. Please, thank you so much. It's a big honor being here today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muhindo. Mr. Muhindo Wilson is the Deputy Minister for Agriculture for the Rwenzururu Kingdom. And thank you for joining us and taking notice and appreciation of the efforts. So, Mr. Magemeso, you have fans out there. They appreciate the changes that are coming in the sector, and we can't continue any further. We want to thank you and thank everybody, and look forward to meeting you next Thursday, same time. I also want to give flowers to our studio team, TCN Studios. Please, thank you very much. You're doing an amazing job. It will also be very unchristian of me not to thank our comms team, Rhoda Naula, Council Rhoda Naula, and Priscilla, and David, and Adam. You are doing a great job. Let us wish you a very, very good night and a nice Eid. For our friends, the Muslims, don't forget to invite us, because we also invite you. So invite us for the pilau, and we will be looking forward. I'm waiting for my invitation from my brother Ibrahim Magemeso here. It's going to be a long weekend.
Surely. Thank you. Thank you very much. You are already invited for Eid celebrations tomorrow. And I must say thank you for this opportunity. I'm sure it has been a very good sharing today, and looking forward to many other engagements. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very, very much. That brings us the end of our conversation today. Thank you and good night.